people think they have a salamander? Raise your hand if you think you have a salamander.
My name is Catherine Matthews. I'm a science educator, a K-12 science educator, and an environmental educator, which means I work with pre-service and in-service teachers who teach science in the classroom.
What happens if it goes to the tap room?
I'm the principal investigator on a National Science Foundation funded project called Herpetology Education in Rural Places and Spaces, and so for short we call that the HERP project. We're in the second year of that $2.7 million NSF grant. We bring students in for a residential experience to try to figure out and inventory the herpetofauna on property. So as it turns out, church camps actually have some nice pieces of property and also offer residential facilities to accommodate high school students. They're eligible to come at no cost then, so our funding allows us to really provide access to this program for students who may not have had opportunities like this. As a matter of fact, every summer we get kids who say they've never been to camp, they've never been away from home even. There aren't a lot of herpetology camps, believe it or not, around the United States that offer this kind of residential experience. It's had a significant impact on the high school kids like Kat Wolston who have attended and who are pursuing careers in conservation education. Our GK-12 program here at UNCG chooses 9 resident scientists each year, and 3 of those resident scientists are placed in the elementary school where we work, 3 are placed in the middle school where we work, and the other 3 are placed in high school classrooms where we work at the high school.
So they also breathe through their skin.
Resident scientists then are assigned a faculty member who works with them directly. We meet with the resident scientist every other week in the GK-12 program, and it's just really exciting to hear them tell about the kinds of students they've reached, the kinds of questions that students ask, the connections that students make. The resident scientists gain so much from this program because they really commit themselves to the students and the teachers.
Looks like green.
It's a green frog, and so listen again as Ms. Walston makes that call.
Dunk, 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 like that.
It sounds like a banjo.
I think one of the things that we've been able to do with the GK-12 grant is we've been able to turn around the Greenway, which has been seen negatively by school officials as a place where students go to do the kinds of things they're not supposed to be doing at school. And instead we've talked about the Greenway as this incredible natural resource that students don't know about. They've been warned to stay away from. They're afraid of the water. They're afraid it's dirty. They have no idea that things actually live down there. To put students in a pair of waders and take them down into the creek and turn over rocks or take a net or a minnow trap and capture some of the common animals that are living down there. And to listen to their questions is a wonderful experience.
How many legs do they have? Well, you know what? Your
tickles.
eyes are better than mine. Can you count the legs?
8.
8 legs plus. What's up for her?
We are primarily focused on how we can use virtual reality for physical therapy, such as using avatars and other virtual environments to retrain people how to walk after some sort of neurological or structural insult, such as a stroke or knee surgery due to an anterior cruciate ligament or ACL tear. So that was really kind of what dawned on me is the technological advances that have gone on in virtual reality and all the potential uses for virtual reality in not only gaming and movies such as Avatar, but then how we can ultimately use those same analyses and that same technology to help create more defined and optimal rehabilitation programs. So this research requires the ability to integrate lots of different things, including understanding the pathology. So from the clinical perspective, what causes these changes? Is it the change in the structure of the knee, the musculature, those kind of things? But also an understanding of the math and physics behind that, and then the technology that you can use to not only study that, but also to help rehab folks. On the behavioral side of things, if you are predisposed to a trip and fall, or if you can't maneuver around a pedestrian or a moving car, that really causes potential for injury and some other types of major catastrophes. And so we want to avoid those. So we try to get down into the nuts and bolts as far as what's going on within the human body, understanding their mechanics from a structural or neurological insult, and then ultimately how can we fix them. And virtual reality came into play because it's really a unique tool in that we can produce anything in virtual reality that you want as long as you know how to do the programming. So you can have virtual environments that have avatars that are doing different types of activities that you ask the patient to synchronize to. So if the patient has lost their adaptive patterns due to the structural or neurological insult, then what you can do is you can build those patterns back into the avatar and then have the patient synchronize to what the avatar is doing. It gives you a very prescribed way in which you can retrain the patient and not have to rely on the physical therapist to be there every second. So the physical therapist would certainly be there overseeing all of the patients, so we don't want to get rid of physical therapists, they're very important to us. But it would offload a lot of the kind of mundane training that the physical therapist would need to do, and could potentially lead to some higher efficiency in the way that the physical therapist could interact with their clients. Not only could this training in virtual environments occur in the clinic, but long-term we envision that we could potentially develop a Nintendo Wii or Microsoft Kinect type of version for this type of training. We are certainly excited to produce all of our research in a scientific type of domain, but at the same time, the thrill is getting to show off the stuff that really works. And then the disappointment is still saying, all right, this is what we tried, it didn't work, but this is how we're gonna move forward from there.
Well, my first research experience was actually as an undergraduate student, and my chemistry teacher had grants to take students out into the wilderness and study lake water. And that was beautiful and wonderful, and I thought, wow, this is what chemists do? I need to be a chemist. My major focus is studying how plants can be used to treat disease or prevent disease. We're interested in identifying the molecules in plants that are responsible for their biological activity. We're specifically focused on treating drug-resistant bacterial infections, such as multi-drug resistant staph infections, MRSA, and also inflammation, such as the inflammation that's associated with colds and flus, arthritis, you name it. When I very first came here to UNC Greensboro 11 years ago, I thought I would start out by studying this plant known as golden seal, which grows in the hardwood forests of North Carolina, actually. It's native to this part of the country. And what we find with this plant is we find that it contains a bunch of diverse chemical compounds that act in very different ways against the bacteria, and that all those different ways can help with treating an infection. A number of students come to me because they have experience with a particular illness in their family that they're interested in treating, or they have experience with a particular type of traditional medicine that they're interested in researching. We actually look a lot at traditional therapies that are used in traditional medicines, traditional Native American traditions in the United States, sometimes also traditional Ayurvedic medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, look at plants that have been used for those purposes and try to understand how they work, do they work, what do they work best for. It's really exciting to take a mixture of unknown chemicals chemicals from a plant and see what it does, and then try to identify the chemicals that are responsible for that. And often we find totally new activities that no one knew of, or find totally new molecules that no one's ever identified before. So it has kind of that National Geographic, out there on the edge, searching out, answering questions that no one's ever answered. The traditional Western pharmaceutical approach is all about identifying a single compound, isolating a single compound, and using that to develop a drug. But that's not the way that traditional medicines work. And most of the world still relies on traditional therapies that are multi-component mixtures. And so we're interested in identifying multiple active constituents in a mixture and figuring out ways to study that mixture and understand what it's doing. And often that's very different than what happens when you take one of those components out of the mixture and look at it by itself. It's great. And it's all the more great because, you had to fail 99 times before you succeeded that 100th time. So that's very satisfying.
I decided on a career in chemistry because I've always been interested in drug discovery and medicine, and chemistry is directly related to medicine. I've been doing research for 2 years in Dr. Check's lab in the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry, and it has changed my perspective on science because in research you don't know what exactly you're going to get out of it. Sometimes things may go the way you planned and sometimes they won't, but either way you're learning. Golden seal is a small perennial herb found in certain regions of the US and Canada. It's known for its tonic effects, antibiotic effects, and also anti-inflammatory effects that it will have on the body. We gain a better understanding of the endophyte plant relationship. We can be able to ultimately determine if the plant is solely responsible for the effects that it has on an individual, or if the endophyte is the cause of the effects that the plant has in humans. Disappointments come when you're doing research and you do not get the expected results, or like great results that you would wish for, but you're able to go back and analyze whatever you've been working on to determine why you got the results. So either way, it's a win-win situation.
We look at why things are located where they are. Geographic information science is really the study of the spatial aspects of human and natural phenomena. And underlying that are the technologies such as geographic information systems, remote sensing, image processing, GPS, and all the other kind of tools that are oriented to gathering geographically referenced data. One of the projects that we're working on currently is mapping broadband availability for North Carolina. And it's part of the Federal Broadband Mapping Initiative. And so the idea is that everybody should have access to broadband for educational reasons, economic reasons. It sort of levels the playing field, including rural areas which tend to lack access to broadband. Mathematics comes in where we have to develop mathematical models for those predictions. So these equations represent those behaviors with the radio wave as they interact with the natural man-made features. And the macro model, the purpose of that is to predict broadband availability, make a map of those. And then we have a model of the natural features on the Earth's surface, elevation, for example. Topography, the man-made features such as buildings. We can recreate three-dimensional images of the buildings based on the data that we get. The next step is once you have a map of broadband access for the entire state, what do you do with it? And one of the things is to increase adoption rates. When you look at the areas that have broadband but aren't adopting for some reason, so you create educational programs. And you can use GIS to identify those areas, whether it be you can look at GIS and broadband availability in relation to education, income, or any other social demographic variables, such as census data that comes into play. And you can draw out reasons why. Is it income? Is it education? Is it just the fact that they're unaware that they have broadband availability in their location? You have to be able to dream, and dream in a childlike manner. It's maybe not ignorance, but it's sort of this naive idea that you can do anything. And not that I can do anything, but I'm just saying that mentality it takes to do those types of things, because you really got to expand upon what's been done and think in a way that is impactful and meaningful. And so some of those ideas are really out there, and anybody that does research in general has to be able to sort of think in that way and be able to accept the idea that you're going to be told no more than once. And that one time you're told yes is well worth all those times you were told no.